I get a lot of messages from people on Facebook that either through hearing a podcast I'd been on or just looking at my photos of my deer, they want to know, what's the key to success? How have you done it? I don't know anything more than anybody else. I just do a lot of scouting and I look for certain situations. I hunt the rut a lot and I look for setups that work in the rut. So I'm looking for doe bedding areas. Of course, I want to know where the bucks bed too, but I'm hunting in the rut and I'd like to be around the doe bedding, downwind of it usually. So I'm looking for good access, and that's what I got here. I can get across this creek. This creek is deep. It's deep, it's fairly wide, and it's got high banks. There's not a lot of places where you can cross this creek, and wherever I can cross it, the deer are going to cross it. So the nice thing about this situation is this is a meandering creek, and with meandering creeks, over time, on the outside bends, the water will end up rushing over and creating a new way the creek runs. So now the creek is running over, and that old bend ends up over time just being a low spot in the creek. It fills up with water. Sometimes it's dry. If it's dry, there'll be scrapes all through it. And if it's not, there's still going to be deer associated with it. They're going to be bedded all on the outside of it. There's going to be beds all around that dead water, oxbow lakes, whatever you want to call it. But the nice thing about it is it creates funnels. And these funnels, the deer are going to use. They're going to, in the rut, they're going to walk that piece of ground between the existing creek now and that oxbow lake, where that deeper water is, because for the most part they're lazy and they want the easiest path of resistance. And the fact that all those does and bucks too, but a lot of does will be bedded on that oxbow lake. So this situation here to my east, I have the bend in the creek that I like. Right here, I can get across the creek from the north, and to the south is the oxbow lake. On the other side of the oxbow lake, there are literally, and it's not a lake per se. I mean, it's basically just the shape of this creek, full of water that does not move. It just sits there. Well, all along there's bedding. So in between this existing creek and that oxbow lake is dry ground loaded with trails. They're running up and down these trails like mad. So I can come in here with a south wind and get in it. I could walk right up that willow tree right there if I wanted to and hunt. There's trails under it, both sides. There's beds just past that where you can see the other willow coming down. There are beds underneath all those trees, and I can get in there without them ever knowing I'm here, and I'd have the wind advantage. And I think that they bed there with a north or a south wind, just for the fact that a lot of times the hunting pressure comes from the south, so they could lay there with a north wind and watch the south where the trail is that the guys come through, or they could lay there with a south wind and smell the hunters trying to access towards them and watch this creek crossing. Either way, you got to hunt it during the rut. I don't worry. I'm aggressive when it comes to bow hunting. I'm not going to worry about busting a couple deer out of here, because I'm going to usually sit here all day long. And chances are, when the bucks are looking for does, they're going to come down through here, because there are beds literally down this whole creek all the way through. And if the wind is coming out of the south, they can walk this whole edge and scent check everything that is through that thicket that goes for 100 acres, I'm telling you. And I'm getting to these deer without them ever knowing I'm here or smelling me. So it's a perfect setup, and this is what I look for. I look for this type of situation in every piece of public land that I go to, or if it's private. This is public property here. If it was private, it's the same thing. I'm looking for something like this. It doesn't have to necessarily be a creek. It could be a swamp. It could be, a lot of different scenarios, but that make it a bulletproof setup where you can access and not worry about deer being able to catch you. And the more of these you have, the better it's going to be. You're going to have success. It's that simple. Find deer, get deer.